ready. Where's Thank you everyone for joining us today on our Chat and Learn series. My name is Amber McClure with Live Free Virtual Services. I am the agency owner and the business matchmaker for the agency. And today we have Tiffany Ghrist on with Process Prowess, who's going to go through how to master the magic of prioritization. Thank you, Tiffany, for being here with us today. I'm excited to learn some tips and tricks from you, like always.
Yes, thank you. I am happy to be here.
So let's get started. Let's talk about this. Would you tell me in your words what you would say prioritization would be for a business owner?
So to me, and how I help my clients with their prioritization is to determine what it is that is going to have the biggest and important impact on their actual business. Obviously, things that have deadlines tied to them are going to be a little bit higher up there on the priority list. But anything that will take a minimal amount of effort, but really we're talking like those money-making activities. Sometimes it's things that they don't want to do and they tend to procrastinate and put lower on the list. Sometimes it's the bigger things, sometimes it's smaller, but really what it comes down to is what is going to really give you the most ROI for your effort, whatever that tangible, product is, or the results of your efforts.
It can be really challenging for a lot of people. I know it is, even for myself, like I have challenges with that. And I do tend to put the things I do not want to do towards the back, even though it's probably not the correct way to do that. So hopefully tell me what's better, right?
You're not alone.
I know business owners, we all tend to do a lot of the same things, and that's why we need help with it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this. The first part, capture everything on a master list and then break it down by month, weekly, and daily goals.
Right. So again, we were talking about prioritization, and one of the biggest struggles is knowing how, right, to do that. And with all the things that we have that's going on and different expectations that we have now and these endless emails and stuff like that, really taking this list and really mastering prioritization can help you reduce stress, and it can help you increase your focus and ignore that FOMO thing that always gets us, right? It really helps with your work-life balance and boundaries and things like that. So when it comes to capturing everything on a master list and breaking it down, it is a matter of everything digital, all the notebooks, the Post-its that you have on your desk, right? And it's impossible to prioritize them if they're swimming around in your head or, in the car, or that napkin that you had at the bar last night when you got this great idea. So really what you want to do is get everything down and have one location that you can get all of your things organized on a master list. So you kind of want to think of this too, once you've collected all your scattered stuff, as a big brain dump, really going through and think of every possible thing that pulls your attention, out of your head, and put it onto this document. And the tool that you use to store the tasks, it doesn't matter, right? It could be a notebook, it could be a piece of paper, somewhere, just as long as it's easily accessible and it's easy for you to update when new things come along, right? Another thing with this is you want to make sure that when you have these ideas, or someone or something needs your attention, that you're not just jumping right into it, because now all is lost, right? You want to really manage this list and utilize that as a day-to-day. Once you've created that, then you're really going to notice that certain tasks, then they need different levels of attention, be it effort or time. You have things that that need to be done today, and then you can start to identify what needs to be done each week, month, how long that you have your long-term goals that are going to help you feel empowered, and how you can start breaking that down. So when you're breaking down those daily goals, you can then just work off this one list, right? When you're working on your monthly goals and your weekly goals, just pull off this list and so on. You're going to be able to cross them off, and that, is going to get those endorphins flowing too, right? You're going to feel better, even though you're crossing them off your master list and haven't done them yet, but that you are intentionally scheduling them within your day, week, or month. Now, when you're doing this, your daily your daily priorities are always going to be aligned with your bigger goals. So you're going to feel like you're not just spinning your wheels and chasing all the shiny things. You're actually going to feel like you have that alignment, and it really helps you combat the tendency to focus on finishing those smaller things rather than the bigger, larger ones, and just breaking them into steps, right? So when you're pulling from the larger list, it makes sure that you're not just working on the urgent things, but in terms of prioritization, they're actually working on those things that are meaningful.
Okay. Oh, I love that. I do. I have lists, I tend to have lists everywhere, and I try to bring it back every few days. Bring it all together, because we do get lost when we start. And being a business owner, like, we all have this, we're very imaginative, and we have all these ideas, and we have all these things we want to do. And sometimes it gets everywhere.
Yeah. And some things are more exciting than others, right? So this really helps you stay focused and make sure that you're doing things that are actually going to make a difference.
Oh, I love it. So next I have separate the urgent from the important tasks with the Eisenhower matrix, right? Like, explain what that looks like. I know you said separate them, right, into daily, but how about the importance?
Yeah, so this can go hand in hand, and some of these things that we're going to talk about are their own separate, solutions or methods that you can use. But this one goes hand in hand with that master list. So imagine you have this big list, right? And now, if you incorporate the Eisenhower matrix, it actually was developed by former US President Dwight Eisenhower. You're able to go down that list of things, and instead of it being so complicated and deciding what needs to be done now versus later, you can look at this matrix here. And as you see, it says urgent, not urgent, important, not important, right? And if you take each item on that list and you ask yourself, what is the amount of effort that needs to go into this? How much time that needs to go into this, and figure out where it goes on that box. You can actually start numbering your tasks, which we'll talk about also, based on how important certain things are, right? So in basic terms here, the urgent tasks are going to be the things that you need to do right away, obviously, right? Urgent.
Right.
Those would be like emails or phone calls or texts or, meetings that you have scheduled and things like that. And you want to do these things, if they're urgent and important, you want to do them as soon as possible, right? Now, if they're important, but they're not urgent, then you're going to decide when you're going to do these things and schedule those. But those are number 2 on your priority list. So does it have to happen today? No, but maybe it needs to happen tomorrow, right?
Right.
Then you have urgent but not important. These are the tasks that you're going to want to delegate. This is exactly what you need Live Free for. You need your VA. You're looking, it needs to get, I know that it needs to happen, but it's not a massive thing. You as a business owner don't need to be spending your time working on these things that fall into that bucket.
I agree.
And then now we have neither urgent nor not important. So what do you think we do with those? Scrap them. if they don't have to happen yesterday and they do not have an impact on your business, why are they on your list, right? So one of the more difficult tasks here is getting the urgent but not important tasks off your priority list. And this is when, again, like I mentioned, that smart delegation is going to come into play. And that really starts with finding the right person and explaining the task properly. And I love working with Live Free because I know that you guys do this and you really are super good at matchmaking, the business owner with someone that's going to jive from a skill and a personality standpoint. And it's super easy to, take those things and offload them and put them onto your VA's plate. Also, it helps you too, if you're looking at these matrix and some other tools that we have, it helps you identify how much time each task is going to be taking so that you can really hold your VA accountable as well.
I agree. Yep. Rank your daily tasks by their true priority with the Ivy League method. Share with us what you mean by that.
So we have gone through the matrix, right? We know what's important. We know what's urgent. We know all the things. Taken our list, broken it down. But sometimes, despite our best efforts, we end up with a huge thing, now a new list, a big list of urgent and important tasks, right? That we feel that we need to get done. So we do have to we do have to find a way to dig deeper and find what their true importance is, right? And one of the best ways, this was actually developed over 100 years ago by a productivity consultant named Ivy Lee, and it forces you to prioritize your day by following a simple set of rules, right? So now at the end of each workday, you want to write down the 6 most important things that you need to accomplish tomorrow, right? Don't write down any more than 6, just 6. You're going to prioritize those items now in order of their importance. So go back up and use that Eisenhower matrix and identify the importance of just these 6 items. Then when you get to your office, your desk, wherever it is that you work the next day, concentrate on just the first task and work on that task until it's done. Do not move on until that one's done. And then you're going to go ahead and approach the rest of your list in the same fashion. And by the end of the day, you're going to move anything that you weren't able to finish that day to a new list of 6 tasks for the following day. And then you're going to repeat the process, right? So you're going to limit yourself, again, 6 tasks each day. And that is going to help create some restraint for you. And it's really to help you focus and stay, properly making sure that you're doing one single task each way and going out about your list and then just jump to the next one.
I love that. I love it. And it's 6 tasks. I mean, it's not a large amount, right?
Yeah.
But it's enough depending on how big of a task it is to keep you busy for that day. And it doesn't look overwhelming to look at 6 things. It looks overwhelming when you're looking at 30, right?
Right, exactly. And it is hard. I mean, we as business owners think, going back to the Eisenhower matrix, we think everything is urgent and everything is important. Hence, we're overwhelmed and we end up doing nothing, right? Because we're we're stuck. So breaking it down into those small chunks, into the must do, should do, would be nice to do, then, that is what we're going to be talking about here too, to help you identify how you can really understand the true importance of those tasks. So I really want to give everybody a lot of methods to understand, how to prioritize what is important and how to go about doing those things.
It doesn't work for everyone the same way, right? Everyone has their own, it's just like the matchmaking, right? I mean, everyone is different skill levels. It just depends on the person themselves. So you got to find what works best for you and then stick with it, right?
Yes, exactly.
So with that said, separate tasks with similar priorities using the ABCDE method. So what method is that? What does that look like?
So this was developed by Brian Tracy, and basically his ABCDE method is, instead of keeping all the tasks on a single level of priority, it allows 2 or more levels of each task, if that makes sense. So basically you take your items, right? Your 6 items, assuming that we're kind of going through this flow and building off of the things that we've talked about already. And you can look at your list and you can say, these are the things that I absolutely must do. These are the things that I should do. And these are the things that would be nice if they got done. I like to keep it down to 3 instead of ABCDE because just things are easier focusing on 3s, right? So when you're looking at those 6 tasks, we're trying to identify, well, what order do I do these tasks? This is a great way to identify, again, the must-dos. Those are going to be your high priority items. They're critical. They're immediate deadlines, like no ifs, ands, or buts. Not just important to us, absolutely important, needs to get done, must do. Then your should do's. Those are going to be your medium priority items, and they're going to be important, over time, but they're not critical, like where that A bucket is. You do want to spend some time engaging on them, completing it, working on it, things like that, but it's not something that has to happen right away. And then those nice to-dos, these again are going to be your low priority items. You might have some negative consequences if you don't get them done this moment, but super low, right? And if you take this approach, then you're going to, create your to-do list and go through and make the marks beside each of them. And this is going to help you another way with the Ivy League concept to identify those 6 items and how to narrow them down, how you order them out. So I like to color code mine, red, yellow, and green. We've talked about this before. I like to do that because it really just immediately draws my eye to it. And I know exactly what I have to knock out and I kind of make a game of it.
It's competitive, right? It's that inside of us.
Yes, absolutely. And it keeps it fun, right?
Right. I could so see myself doing that too. And I actually have started that with a lot of the things that I have on my calendar. It's helped a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, set a productive tone for the day by eating the frog. We've talked about this before.
Yep. And I'm not going to spend too terribly much time on it, but it does help. Because once you've prioritized your most important work, whatever method it is that you choose to use or a combination of methods that you choose to use, it's now actually time to attack the day, right? You don't want to spend half your day planning. You actually need to start get going. And how you start that day, as we've talked about, is going to set the tone for the rest of your day, right? So if you get that big, hairy, yet important task out of the way, it's going to give you that momentum and inspiration and keep you going. And you always want to have one of these frogs at the top of your list. Just try to get into that best practice too. Again, like we talked about, not only are you getting it out of the way, but it's really going to motivate and continue to push you through the rest of the day. And by prioritizing that smaller win, which is why I've included this in here as well, it's not just a time management tool. It also keeps you going from a prioritization standpoint. If you prioritize that small win, then it's easy for you to stay motivated for the rest of the day.
That frog, it's always that hard one.
That frog.
I know. Okay, cut out good enough goals with Warren Buffett's two-list strategy.
Yes. So it does not matter, right? And I love good enough, right? Because sometimes like it feels satisfying to just be able to say it's good enough, right? It just feels good thinking about it, to know that you're actually doing what you need to do, even with that mindset. But it doesn't matter how efficient and effective that you are each day if you're actually working towards the wrong goal, right? So that's why all those other things are super important. And it's a really good idea to reassess your long-term goals and priorities to make sure that you're still on the right path. And this is something that I do with my clients as well. What's working, what's not working, what's changed, where do we need to shift? And instead of sending them down 6 months and something that we can do in 6 weeks, I'd like to catch that early.
Right.
So again, this is from billionaire investor Warren Buffett. And the first step that he recommends is write down your top 25 goals. Like, think big. These could be your life goals, career goals, education goals, whatever it is. And then circle your top 5 on that list. And any goal that doesn't have a circle around it is your avoid at all costs list. Now, I know that seems counterproductive, right? So rather than working on these goals when you have time, you're going to want to try to avoid them. And these things seem important, and I'm not saying forever, right? Just for this is how we're prioritizing and focusing on what we need to focus on, little bits at a time. These things are seemingly important enough to deserve your attention, but they're not really moving you towards your long-term priorities, right? Once you've taken that step back and you're listing out and you've identified those 5, it really puts things into perspective for you. So in a perfect world, right, all of these methods are going to fly you seamlessly through your day, right, until quitting time, but we don't live in that perfect world. So what you want to do is be flexible, right, enough to change your mind and drop those priorities. And that's where that good enough, mentality comes in. You might prioritize a task that you only have expectations or your deliverables might change on you and things like that. And it's really hard not to be disappointed. So the whole concept of the good enough is once you've identified those goals, then again, we break them into the smaller things that we've talked about. You can't really let these things that kind of try to derail you completely skew your judgment. Right. And if you adopt that, well, this is good enough, knowing that you psychologically are continuing to work and put in your time and effort into something that you feel compelled to do, or know that you've planned ahead and that that you're never going to get that time back. It really helps you, again, psychologically, not let that derail you and say, okay, this is good enough. Take that deep breath and just keep moving forward because you have faith and trust in the process that you've implemented.
And you have so many, there's so much that it takes up in your space, right? It just takes it up.
Yes. Yes.
Be flexible enough to change your mind and drop priorities. Okay, yes. I change my mind all the time.
Yes. So this ties into the list strategy with Warren Buffett because as I was saying, things don't go always how they're supposed to be planned. So what you want to do when it comes to priorities is always have a set um, a set of contingencies, so to speak, and it helps prioritize. And this is something that I do with my clients as well. And I'm going to dabble a little bit in boundaries here for a second, is to be able to say, if something challenges this thing that I said was my priority, or if this task that I set aside 2 hours to do is going to end up taking me 4 hours, and then I have to dump something into the next day. It's a matter of being okay with that. It's a matter of being open-minded and understanding, okay, if my day shifts, or if I have an emergency meeting that I didn't plan for, how am I going to be able to not completely get thrown off track? There are some people that are super flexible and kind of go with the flow, and some too much, right? And then there's people that have taken this time to really jot down and organize and, block out their day by 15-minute increments. But what happens if, halfway through the day, something goes awry, right? It's really important to be able to plan ahead, understand what could those pitfalls or, roadblocks or something be. How am I going to make sure that I can proactively identify them, right, before they completely put your day into shambles? And what am I going to do to be able to be flexible and quickly adapt and adjust so that I'm not thrown off track, and so that I can continue my day? And then that's where we go into, if you didn't get your stuff done, then go ahead and list it onto your following day, but be okay with it. Be okay with it.
Right.
Just it's not a perfect world.
It's not a perfect world. And every day it's something. It usually happens that way, right? So, I mean, we have to be able to adjust and adapt.
Yes.
Use time multipliers to make the most of your daily hours.
Yes. So time multipliers. So when we're talking about prioritization, it's not just about the actual task, right? I kind of touched on this just earlier. It's about the amount of time that you're taking to do these tasks. And working on the right tasks can either give you more time in the future, or it can take it away from you, right? So as you learn how to prioritize, you want to really be aware of the impact of your choices and how they can have that impact on your future obligations, right? So the best thing that you can do here is to focus on these time multipliers, and rather than asking what is the most important thing I can do today, again, take the nuggets, whatever works for you, works for you. Okay, this is going to kind of contradict a little bit what we've been talking about. But instead of asking what's the most important thing to do, time multipliers are going to ask what's the most important thing that I can do today that is going to make tomorrow better, right? So in other words, you're thinking about how we're using our time today so that we can free up hours in the future. So this is also where it goes back to, is it urgent? Is it important? And what's that level of effort? How much time are you going to be putting into this? So having that in the back of your mind as well when you're planning out and prioritizing your task list is super important. This is also going to help your work environment habits just in general, time and task. And by prioritizing these right habits and creating that distraction-free work environment, then you are actually giving yourself extra time in the future. So be mindful of that as well.
I love extra time. I do.
Yeah.
When things get done quickly and you have that extra time, it feels great.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Prioritize your most important work during your most productive hours. Yes, agree 1,000,000%.
Yeah, so we talked about identifying first your brain dump, right? We talked about identifying what really has to happen, narrowing that down to a smaller list, how to be flexible and knowing that it's okay to put something into the next day, having those contingency plans. Now it's about the execution piece. And it's one thing to have a list, it's another thing to know what you're going to do when throughout that day, right? There's 24 hours in it. So you can really supercharge your productivity if you're combining your task and time priorities together. So we all go through these natural highs and lows of energy and focus throughout the day, right? I mean, I am afternoon, like I'm on it. Before that, admittedly not so much. So there's certain times in the day where I'm going to be more productive, right? So if I can find my peak productive times and then schedule my high priorities during that time, then I'm going to be setting myself up for the best day, right? And with this information, you can really start going in and creating that time block schedule that matches your highest priority work with your peak productivity hours. And this is what we talk about, getting that extra time back, because you're going to start nailing these hard things when you're at your peak performance. And if you're prioritizing the time and the tasks, you're golden at the end of the day.
You know, I was visualizing that, and I'm a morning person, like very much so morning person, and very my productivity level is much higher in the morning than it is the afternoon. So it's funny when I think about it, all the activities that I always schedule in the morning, like, are those right activities that I'm scheduling, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Did we miss one?
Well, I'm going to kind of wrap it up here, since we're done with our we're done with all those methods, and I hope some of them were helpful and there were some key takeaways. Again, you know, you're not expected to use all of them, but a lot of them kind of like intertwine, and they complement each other pretty well. The main thing that I want to say about priorities, though, Amber, is remember to be realistic about how much work that you can do each day, right? We talked about the psychological impact. We talked about the happiness of crossing things off of the list, and then not like totally getting derailed if your day, you know, goes in a different direction. But when you do prioritize your work properly, you pretty much are guaranteed to have a pretty good day. And hitting the end of the day and seeing that you've knocked out those tasks and that important work is really going to be an amazing feeling. But definitely understand it isn't always possible, right? Good enough. Make sure that you're entering things with good intentions, because sometimes tasks are going to last longer than expected. Interruptions are going to come up. Our days are going to get filled with work, and you just really do need to be realistic and give yourself grace and patience through this process, in understanding how much work you can actually get done. If you're putting too much expectations on yourself, you're not going to be able to feel good about the progress that you've made at the end of the day, and really take that step back and feel like you've, you know, deserved a well-deserved break at the end of the day. We don't want you beating yourself up. We want you, you know, patting yourself on the back, planning for tomorrow, and rinse and repeat, right?
Right. No, I agree. That's great advice. I agree. You know, taking that time to know, like, don't give yourself too much, because if you do that to yourself, you're just the mental side that happens when you're overwhelmed and you're trying to do it all, and then you don't get it done. So anyways, yeah. So thank you so much for sharing all of these strategies with us. As always, I love learning from you. Thank you for joining us today, and till next time. Tiffany, thank you. Have a great day. And thank you everyone for joining us. Amber McClure, Live Free Virtual Services. And we have Tiffany Ghrist with Process Prowess. Thank you.